Imagine you wear invisible glasses,
Right.
and they shape how you see, well, everything, every person, every idea, every experience.
hmm
Now, what if you could just swap those glasses, see the world completely differently?
That's a fascinating starting point.
Well, today, that's kind of what we're diving into. We're exploring the ideas of George Kelly and his personal construct theory.
Yeah, PCT. It's really quite powerful stuff.
Our mission, really, is to get a handle on who Kelly was, what this theory is actually about, and I think most importantly, how it affects how we think, day in, day out.
Definitely. And the material we're drawing on presents it really clearly, I think. Makes it memorable.
So yeah, let's get ready for a bit of a journey into understanding these unique lenses we all use to make sense of the world.
And Kelly himself had quite the journey, didn't he? Not your typical psychologist background.
No, not at all. He started in physics and math, can you believe it? Then taught speech.
Right, and worked with pilots during World War II before even getting into psychology proper.
It's such an unusual path. And you have to think, moving from something like physics to dealing with pilots under pressure.
It must have shaped his view,
Yeah.
seeing people as active problem solvers.
Exactly. Not just reacting to things like the behaviorists thought back then, with rats and rewards.
Or driven solely by unconscious fears, like the Freudian perspective dominant at the time in the 30s. Kelly was different.
He really was. His core idea was more like, people are scientists, trying to predict and control their lives.
Yeah, constantly forming hypotheses about the world and testing them out.
And some of those quirky details about him, like setting up mobile psychology clinics in rural Kansas during the Depression.
Incredible, really, bringing psychology directly to the people who needed it. And apparently he didn't even finish high school initially.
But then gets degrees in math and physics. It just shows that unconventional path again.
Absolutely. A unique thinker from the start.
So we have this picture of Kelly, this sort of practical innovator. Let's really get into the theory itself now, personal construct theory. What are these invisible glasses, these constructs, actually made of?
Okay. So the heart of PCT is this idea of constructs. Think of them exactly like you said, mental filters, lenses.
Invisible glasses.
Precisely. They're the tools we use individually to interpret everything. A common example is friendly versus cold.
Right. You meet someone new, and you sort of instantly place them on that scale.
You do. And the key thing Kelly pointed out is that our reality isn't this single objective thing we all share. It's built from these personal frameworks.
So my friendly might be slightly different from your friendly.
Exactly. And these constructs are usually bipolar. They have two ends, like friendly versus cold. We understand one pole partly by understanding its opposite.
Okay, so it's like a mental seesaw understanding up because we know down.
That's a good way to put it. We're constantly sorting, categorizing based on these internal scales.
And it's not just passive sorting, is it? It's more active than that. They help us figure out what might happen next.
Yes, exactly. That's crucial. We use these constructs actively to make predictions.
Predictions about how people will act or what might unfold in a situation.
If you construe someone as, say, reliable, you predict they'll follow through on promises. That act of interpreting through your constructs, Kelly called it construing.
Construing. Okay. So it's our specific way of making sense of things through these personal filters.
Spot on.
But here's something I found really interesting. These constructs, these glasses, they aren't fixed, right? We're not stuck with the ones we start with.
That's a cornerstone of the theory. They are dynamic. They can change, evolve.
Which means we can actually revise our understanding of reality.
Yes, we can update our filters based on new experiences.
But hang on. If they can change, why does it sometimes feel so hard? Changing your mind about someone or a big issue.
That's a very practical question. Just because they can change doesn't mean it's always easy. Think about it. Some constructs are really central to how we see ourselves in the world. Changing them can feel, threatening, destabilizing.
Like pulling a thread that unravels a whole lot more.
Sort of. It takes effort. It means recognizing, first, that a current construct maybe isn't working well for you, that it's leading to poor predictions or negative feelings.
And then you have to actively look for new information,
Yeah.
experiences that challenge it.
Exactly. And that can be uncomfortable. Stepping outside your usual way of seeing things often is.
So back to that scientist idea.
Yeah.
We run an experiment, maybe interact with someone we labeled unfriendly.
Yeah.
And if the results, their behavior don't match our hypothesis, our unfriendly construct.
We shouldn't just ignore the data. Ideally, we adjust the theory. We revise the construct.
Which Kelly believed we're constantly doing, or at least capable of doing, Testing our ideas, seeing if they hold up.
Yes, testing if they lead to accurate predictions, if they help us navigate the world effectively. If not, we have the potential to change them.
This is really clicking.
Yeah.
It's like we each have this personal instruction manual for the world, and we're supposed to be updating it as we go.
That's a great analogy.
So how does this actually look in everyday life?
Yeah.
Can you give some more examples of these opposing traits we use?
Sure. Think about how we describe people all the time. We might use pairs like intelligent versus unintelligent,
Okay.
or maybe honest versus dishonest. Hardworking versus careless, that was one mentioned in our sources.
Right. Hardworking, careless. Those are definitely constructs. We use those dimensions to sort people out.
We do. They're quick ways to make sense of others.
And the crucial point, I guess, is remembering that just because we've slapped a careless label on someone based on maybe one interaction,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the whole truth about them. It's just our current construction, our interpretation.
Exactly. And PCT suggests we could potentially flip that, or at least add nuance, right? Consider other ways to see them.
Because our first take might be based on limited info, or maybe old baggage from past experiences.
Precisely. But as we get more data, more interactions, different situations, we might find that initial assessment just doesn't fit anymore. It's incomplete, maybe even wrong.
And that's where the story about Maya and her teacher comes in. That really nailed it for me.
Yes, it's a perfect illustration. She starts off construing her teacher simply as mean. That's her construct.
Pretty straightforward negative label.
Right. But then she sees something unexpected. She sees the teacher patiently helping another student who's struggling.
And that observation clashes with the mean construct.
It forces a reevaluation. Her understanding shifts. She doesn't throw out strict, perhaps, but she revises the construct to something like strict but caring.
So the teacher didn't fundamentally change in that instant, but Maya's perception did. Her invisible glasses got an update.
Exactly, and that's the power of it. A shift in a construct leads to a totally different view, potentially a different relationship.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many people or situations have we mentally filed away based on an initial, maybe flawed construct?
It's a confronting thought. How many mean teachers or unreliable colleagues are actually more complex, seen through a different lens?
And how that initial label then influences how we interact with them, probably reinforcing the very label we applied.
That can definitely happen. It becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy based on our constructs.
It also suggests that if we could just understand someone else's constructs, understand the glasses they're wearing,
Oh, absolutely. That's huge.
it could change everything in terms of communication, couldn't it?
It fosters empathy, for starters. If you understand why someone sees the situation the way they do based on their constructs, even if you disagree.
Now, you can at least see their perspective. It's not just random or malicious.
Right. It helps navigate disagreements more constructively. And beyond that, recognizing constructs can be dynamic. Well, it opens up possibilities for change, for helping people reframe things that are causing them pain.
Okay, so this clearly isn't just some dusty old theory stuck in academia. It has real legs. The sources mention therapy, education, even UX design.
Yeah, the applications are pretty broad, actually.
How does it work in therapy, for instance?
Well, a therapist using a PCT approach would work with a client to first identify the key constructs they use, especially those related to their problems. How do they construe themselves, their relationships, their future?
Okay, mapping out their mental landscape.
Exactly. Then they might explore how rigid or unhelpful some of those constructs are. Are there alternative ways to construe those experiences that might be more, well, constructive, more adaptive?
Helping them try on different glasses, essentially.
That's a good way to put it. And in education.
That seems intuitive. Understanding how a student sees learning itself.
Right. Does a student construe mistakes as failure and proof they're stupid, or do they construe them as opportunities to learn?
Huge difference in how they'll approach a tough subject.
Absolutely. A teacher who understands a student's constructs can tailor their feedback, their encouragement, maybe help shift that student towards a more growth-oriented view.
Makes sense. Now, UX design user experience. How do personal constructs fit into designing an app or a website?
It's about anticipating how a user will mentally model the interface. How will they construe what this button does or what that icon means?
So designers need to think about the user's likely invisible glasses when they encounter the design.
Precisely. They need to understand the user's existing mental categories and expectations. Does the design align with those? Or if it introduces something new, does it help the user build an accurate, useful construct for it easily?
Because if the user construes a save button as meaning save and close, but it just means save.
That leads to frustration,
Mhm.
bad UX. So understanding user constructs helps create interfaces that feel intuitive and predictable.
Wow. I hadn't really connected Kelly's ideas to something like designing software before. It's designing for perception, really.
It is designing for how people make sense of things.
Okay, this has been a really illuminating deep dive into George Kelly and PCT. If we were to boil it down, the big takeaway is what?
I think it's that we all operate with these unique mental filters, these personal constructs.
Our invisible glasses.
Right. And
Oh.
crucially, they aren't set in stone. We can and do change them. We are active meaning makers.
Constantly interpreting, predicting, and sometimes reinterpreting based on our experiences.
Exactly that.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is take a moment. What kind of invisible glasses are you wearing right now? And just consider what might happen if you consciously tried on a different pair, just to see.
It's a powerful question to ask oneself.
And it's clear Kelly's legacy is pretty significant. George A. Kelly, 1905 to 1967. His work wasn't just abstract theory.
No, it laid groundwork for cognitive therapies. It informs research, design, education, even today.